What's the point of negative stats? Why do we have high stats and low stats? Things that you're good at, like we'll take attributes, your strength score, things that you're good at, and things that you're not only not good at, but things that you are bad at. Why do we have that in RPGs? Hello everyone, welcome to Architrave Gaming, I'm the Archmaster. The reason why we have that is so that they can be used. You have to be able to actually, if you have a low strength, we want you actually making strength scores and failing at it. That way you feel the choices you made. If you chose to make a wizard with high intelligence and a low strength, we want you to actually do something with your strength in order to reinforce the decisions that you have made, right? In the same way that we want you to make intelligence checks and intelligence saving throws and cast spells using your intelligence, we want you to feel the fact that you made those that choice to have a high intelligence. We also want you to feel that with the skills, the attributes and whatnot that you just left neutral, and those that you made negative, where you put your negative stats. There are some game designers who don't know why we have negative stats, and so they just get rid of them altogether in their game. But it's actually important because it reinforces the choices you've made about your character and who your character actually is. So one way we actually implement this in our game, A&A, is that we actually let everyone do a little bit of everything. Everyone isn't a jack of all trades. The brute or the dreadblade can't just pick up a wand of fireballs and use it. But every caster uses martial weapon, not martial. They use weapons. They use melee weapons and whatnot. It's so boring in D&D that you play a caster and you never have to pick up a weapon and you never have to put on armor because you never get in melee, and so you never feel the consequences of your choices of not making a martial savvy character, one who can't fight, one who doesn't have armor. Those choices don't matter. They just don't matter at all because you never actually go into melee. You never actually fight with swords. So who cares if you don't have proficiency in swords? Who cares if you have a negative strength stat? You never use swords anyway. So it totally bypasses the whole negative side of it that, ooh, you've chosen to be a caster, you're good at magic, but now you're not good at martial stuff. Well, who cares if I'm not good at martial stuff? I don't ever touch martial stuff. I never use swords. It's like, okay, we need you to actually use these things so that you feel the lack of them, right? We absolutely do the same thing like in D&D. D&D does the same, they actually do it correctly with marshals and casters, where we say, hey, marshals, you don't get magic, right? They feel the lack of magic. They see the caster if they're casting fireball, and they feel the lack of it because they're like, man, I can't levitate, I can't fireball, I can't turn invisible. But casters never feel the lack of swords and shields because they're all blasters. They can just, shoot 2 or 3 D10 with their unlimited cantrip firebolt, and they can do mage armor and shield. They never feel the lack of combat ability because they're better combatants than the actual martial characters. So in our system, we don't give you, with casters, we don't give casters enough spell slots and mana, and essentially we don't give them enough castings of spells per day to actually make up for their lack of martial versatility. They have to actually pick up a sword. They have to actually maybe wear a single piece of armor, even if it gives them a negative stat, because, man, they need it. So this way, you play a caster character, and you actually feel your choices. They actually matter in game, where you pick up your sword, and you're like, man, I hope I don't get a nat 1 on this because I'm not proficient in it, and I'll, do the weapons damage die to myself. Oh no, I better attack with advantage. I better make sure that all my attacks are really precise, right? And of course, there are ways to actually give yourself advantage in the game with the action economy, so that's not as terrible as it would sound in 5e. But they actually take their sword, and they're like, oh yeah, I only get a +3 to attack. The Dreadblade over there gets a +8 to attack. And so you actually feel the difference. Oh yeah, I'm not as good at swords as he is, right? So you actually are reminded every time you play of the choices you have made to be good at magic and not good at swords, because you're actually using swords. In D&D, you never use swords, so that point of, oh, he's good at fighting and I'm not, never comes up, because you don't need to use swords. You have firebolt and fireball and all the spells. So yeah, the reason why we have negative stats, negative attributes, negative skills, negative everything, is so that they can be used. It's not so that you can just never touch it, because then you might as well not even have the ability. If you never make a strength check as a wizard, then you might as well not have a strength score. And who cares if it's negative, right? If we make it negative and say, therefore you never have to use it, you just eliminate the whole point of why it's negative in the first place. Why do we even have a negative score? In that case, you can just make different classes that can only do certain things, and they only do those things well, and they never have to do anything else that they're never good at, right? That would just be boring. You only ever do things you're good at all the time. That's kind of lame. So now our game, we actually, you could say require. I mean, yeah, you don't have enough spell slots, so if you want to survive, you're probably gonna have to use a sword. We do require you to actually use those things that you're not good at, because that makes the game shine. And that also makes the martial characters feel good, because it's like, yeah, you can levitate and, you know, cast an unlocked spell on the door and blind the enemies, and you can do all sorts of cool things. But I see you rolling with a +3 to hit, and I have a +8 to hit. Like, you know, I also have, you know, the weapon maneuvers, and I have, you know, the martial skills and all sorts of things, right? They actually get to feel better at the thing than the casters are. Whereas in D&D, marshals don't feel better at fighting than casters, because casters never fight in melee. So you don't even feel better. The casters just feel like the kings of the game. Like it's a magic casting game in D&D, with some marshals just thrown in to be their minions, right? It's not a game for marshals at all. Anyway, yeah, food for thought. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe and feed the algorithm and all that. God bless.